Good afternoon, folks. I'm back. Earlier today, I did my weekly Let's Talk Power Live, and I talked about three critical women who used writing as their tool for resistance and protest. I'm back now because the thing that we all knew was in the air, in the ethos, in the atmosphere was going to happen has in fact happened. The president has signed the executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. And while we all knew it was coming, it still sends a shockwave, which is what it was meant to do in the first place. We all know, most of us know, that back in 1979, Congress signed the order to allow for the formation of the Department of Education. And it is Congress who has the purse string to say that the Department of Education will no longer exist. But here's the other thing we know. We know that, like the suffocating ficus tree that engulfs its prey, it eats it from the inside out. We very well understand that this executive order is going to have the suffocating effect of veritably eating the Department of Education away from the inside out. We also know, and many folks know, that 90% of states' money come from the states. So take New York, for example. 5% of New York's budget comes from the federal government. So the other 95% comes from within the state through taxes. But here is why the Department of Education matters. It matters because it helps put guardrails around the traditionally and soon to be ever more marginalized groups. It provides specific funding for students who are in low income environments where their tax bases are derived from rental properties, so that unlike other affluent areas where their tax base that funds the school systems is from property values, if you live in an area where the property values are based upon renters, then there's going to be less money available. So there's $18.4 billion of the DOE set aside for Title I funding. And then there's about $15.5 billion set aside for students with disabilities under the IDEA Act. Those dollars are provisioned to support services for students with designated disabilities. And then there's the trillions of dollars that the DOE manages for student loans. The idea that what the president's case making is we're going to turn all the rights and the rulings and regulations back to the states, that's a misnomer, because states already dictate their curriculum. They determine where their money is going to go. They determine funding. They determine allocations of the funding. They determine their own curricula, and they determine their own hiring. What the federal government allows for there to be is protection. They allow for civil rights protections. They allow for, like I said a few moments ago, they also allow for protections for finances for disabilities, students with disabilities, as well as students in low income neighborhoods and from families experiencing poverty. Without that protection, without that set aside money, states are going to get what's called a block grant. In those block grants, all of their money is going to come. So there will be no designation for the IDEA. There will be no specific designation for Title I or Title II funding, and there will not be designation for Title IX and Title III. All of the money will come in one space, and it'll be up to states to determine what to do with that money. And while the federal government doesn't like the word equity, equity matters, because equity is a real thing, because you can still look it up in the dictionary and it will have meaning. And in this time, it is going to be crucial for state leaders to take the lens of equitable distribution of funds so that there is a continuity of services for people, for the young people who benefited from the designated dollars of Title I, for teachers to get professional learning through Title II, for there to be Title IX, for there to be civil rights protections. And what's interesting here is 15 of our nation's states who voted for the person who occupies the White House, they benefit from the dollars of blue states. So a lot of their federal funding, they're going to experience a severe reduction in their federal funding because a lot of that money is going to go straight to the states with the largest percentages, and their percentages are going to be lowered. CNN reported on a district in Kentucky called Bell, I think it's Bell Center or Bell County. It's Bell County, Kentucky. And in that segment, they talked to the superintendent, they talked to a principal, and they talked to a teacher. And the superintendent said, without federal money, he will have students in his district whose food on Friday at school is likely to be the only meal they get until they get back in school on Monday. The principal said that without federal funds, designated federal funds, she is going to have larger class sizes and fewer resources for her Title I students. Now, this is a district, this is a state who voted for the president. And this principal said, and the superintendent said, we didn't vote for this. We voted because he said he was going to make America first. This is not making America first. When you are taking food, funds, and resources away from young people, this is not America first. And so in this time, it is crucial that as a leader of a state and a district, that you are in community right now with colleagues who are going to be strategizing, who are going to be thinking about your plans, not just for the 25-26 school year, but for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. Because what we do today is going to have lasting effect on student populations. It's going to determine who gets a quality education and who does not. And what they're doing to make their case is they're saying, well, you know, the NAEP scores haven't changed. We're going to give all of this back to the states because, you know, federal money does not do much anyway. They're wrong. And we know they're wrong. And so right now, you really want to be, you need to be in a community with a lot of people at the state and district level who are going to be strategizing a way forward. I'm inviting you to my webinar on April 16th, and I will be sending out information. So please, if you follow me on any social media platform, be on the lookout for links and more information about how to be a part of this webinar and how to be a part of a growing community of state and district leaders who are really going to come together and huddle up to strategize and be in community and map a way forward so that what's happening with our federal government does not disrupt the excellent education that every single student deserves. Thank you.